Hello, and welcome to the Book Color Review. My name is Ursula, and I am your lovely host. Welcome to episode 1, where we will be reviewing a book by an author I am completely obsessed with right now, the lovely and talented Miss Kylie Scott. We will be reviewing her book, Repeat. Repeat is a second chance novel. And for those of you who don't know what a second chance novel is, that is when a couple that is torn apart are brought back together. Our couple is Clementine and Ed. Our book begins. Clementine has amnesia because she is attacked and hit on the head and has damage to the front of her brain. So she has no clue who she is. And so she's living with her sister, and she decides to go out and just start trying to figure out about herself. She has a tattoo on her arm, and someone sees her out one day. It's like, hey, cool tattoo. Did Ed do it? And she's like, I have no idea. I have amnesia. So she decides, let's go find this Ed guy, see if he gave me this tattoo. Well, she gets to this tattoo parlor, and Ed is just like, look, you need to leave. This isn't cool. You broke my heart. And she's just like, whoa, dude. Look, I have amnesia. What are you talking about? I just came to see about this tattoo. So, as you can tell, Ed's like, hey, sorry, didn't know you have amnesia. But anyways, this is really hard for him because she broke his heart. She broke up with him. You find out that she thought he was cheating on her with his friend Tessa that works in the tattoo parlor with him. And he's just like, look, that didn't happen. I don't know why you thought that. And she's just like, I have no idea why I thought that. I have amnesia. I wish I knew, because you're really attractive and I really like you. So as the book goes on, they start running into each other. They ran into each other at a restaurant they went to together, and then she has a seizure, and he comes to the hospital and takes care of her until her sister can get to her. And so then they decide that she's going to start walking his dog, and because she wants to spend time with this animal, because it turns out they used to live together. And that's when Ed and her start to spend somewhat time together, but not really. It's kind of weird because he's just like, look, you broke my heart, but I want to help you. And she's like, I just want your help, but I'm also really attracted to you. This is totally weird. So as the story goes on, she gets a job at a bookstore, and as she's working at a bookstore and living with her sister, her car gets vandalized. And that's when the police are just like, look, this is a little bit weird. First you're attacked and you have amnesia, and now your car's vandalized. There might be a connection. Somebody might be after you. And that's when Clementine's like, well, that's just great. Like, I'm attacked, my car's vandalized, and now I found out somebody's after me. What's next? I'll tell you what's next. Ed comes to her work and is like, look, your sister called me and told me about your car. I'm kind of worried. You're spending a lot of time by yourself. You should kind of move out of your sister's and live with me until we can at least figure out who's after you. And she's just like, that's a fantastically bad idea. But you're really hot, and I kind of have feelings for you. So you kind of also have a point because I spend a lot of time by myself. I'll move in with you. So she moves in with them, which also happens to be the place that they were living at together before she broke up with them. Things get a little bit weird because then she's looking for a pin one day and finds an engagement ring, and it turns out he was gonna propose right before she broke up with him, which makes things even more awkward. And then his brother moves in, and this just gets weird because he's like, where am I gonna sleep? She's in the spare bedroom, you're in the big room, the couch is really not comfy. And so Ed's like, well, she can just sleep with me. And Clementine's like, what? It's a little weird. Maybe your bed's kind of big, plus you're kind of hot. All right, I'll sleep in the same bed with you. And then, it gets a little weird. Yeah, maybe just a little bit. But it's still really good. Okay, where were we? Ah, yes. They were sleeping in the same bed together. All right, so they're living together, and one day, who walks into the bookstore that Clementine is working at but Tessa, the girl from the tattoo parlor. That's his friend. And she's just like, let's go have a drink. I don't want you living with Ed. You're going to break his heart again. And Clementine's like, look, I don't really have anywhere else to go. If somebody's after me, I'm going to still live with him. And Tessa's like, ugh. All right, fine, but you know, he's eventually gonna want to be with you again. And Tessa is just like, sweet, he's hot. I kind of like him. We should be together. And that's when Ed comes to where they're having a drink because he's worried because he finds out that Tessa went to the bookstore. And that's when you find out that the reason that they broke up was because Clementine thought Tessa was sleeping with Ed when they weren't. Yeah, I know. Bad. And Ed gets all upset when he has to admit all that and storms off. Later that night, she's at the apartment waiting for him, and he shows up, and they finally have a heart-to-heart, and he's just like, look, I don't know how I feel about you. I should have told you why we broke up, but I think we should spend time together just to see what this is, because I think I have feelings for you. And she's just like, sweet, let's spend time together. So they decide to start spending time together, and the next day she goes to work, and the bookstore is vandalized. So now, first she's attacked, then somebody vandalizes her car. Now somebody attacks where she works. What's next? She doesn't know what's going on. So that night, she goes home with Ed, and all his friends were there. And that's when you meet a girl named Shannon again. Shannon is another girl that works at the tattoo parlor. And so she's there with their friends, and Tessa's there, and Tessa's boyfriend, and Ed's brother. And so Clementine gets a headache and goes to sleep. And so everybody goes out, and that night, after Clementine wakes up, her and Ed finally have sex. And Kylie Scott, I have to tell you, you did a fantastic job at the sex scene. It was great. Some authors can be a little too graphic, and other authors aren't necessarily graphic enough to actually paint a proper picture. Because when you read a romance novel and you get to a passionate love scene, you want to feel that. When you read it, you want to be like, oh, I feel that. Oh. And Kylie Scott, you did a great job. It was not too graphic, but just graphic enough, and just what you need to get you a little hot and bothered. Touche, Miss Kylie Scott. You did a good job. So Clementine and Ed finally have sex, and they're getting closer than ever. And things seem to be going okay. So Tessa decides to take her out and get her a little makeover. And it turned out that Ed has asked Tessa to take her out and get her hair done and makeup and new clothes, because he set up for her to have a nice dinner with all her friends and coworkers, because she's having such a hard time. And Tessa, her boyfriend, the bookstore owner, like her sister, all of them are there. And it's so sweet, and Clementine is so touched that she can't hold her feelings back anymore. She looks at Ed and just goes, I love you. And he just looks at her and has nothing to say. As you can imagine, that's probably really hard for him. I mean, this girl that broke his heart comes back into his life with amnesia, and he's just now being like, look, there's something there. Of of course he's going to freak out just a little bit. After dinner, which was a little awkward, but not too awkward, they're back at their place and they end up getting it on again. But after they get it on, they have like in the post-coital, or yeah, I think that's how you say it. How would Sheldon say it? Whatever. Anyways, after the bliss after being together, they have a nice conversation, and he pretty much admits to her that he's scared, but that he's not going anywhere, and that kind of pacifies her, so they go to sleep. Well, later that night, she's up walking the dog out so he can go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I'm sorry, Clementine, but don't ever go outside in the middle of the night with a dog. I mean, seriously, girlfriend. No. Anyway, she's outside, and who shows up? But Shannon, the girl that works at the tattoo parlor, the girl that's also dating Ed's brother. And it's just like, hey, you should know that before all this happened and you broke up with Ed, you told me he was screwing Tessa. So I just want to be a good friend and tell you that's what you told me. And Clementine just kind of looks at her and just goes, what? Why would I tell you that? And that's when Clementine just goes, forget that. I don't believe it. I don't want to hear any of it. He wouldn't do that. And I have to say, Clementine, bravo. Thank you. Standing up for your man. You go, girlfriend. And that's when Shannon just kind of looks at her and goes, okay, and stabs her. Right? As you can guess, who's been the person wreaking all this havoc? Shannon. And as she stabs her, she pushes her to the ground and just goes, you don't deserve him. So as you can guess, Shannon was in love with Ed. Well, when all this happens, the dog sees it and is just like, hey, don't do that. And just starts barking and wakes up Ed and his brother, and they come running out. And Ed saves Clementine, and his brother tackles Shannon. And next you know, Clementine is waking up in the hospital, and Ed is like, look, I'm so sorry. Shannon's kind of crazy. It turns out that she first hit you on the head because that caused you having amnesia, because apparently when we broke up, I wasn't getting over you fast enough, so she thought she'd just go finish the job. And then all of a sudden you came back, so she then wrecked your car, and then she vandalized the bookstore. And then when all that didn't work, she stabbed you. But that's okay. She's in jail. Yay! Bye-bye, Shannon. Thank goodness. So, after Ed says all that, he finally looks at her and just goes, I love you. Finally. Nothing like almost losing your girlfriend to realize you love her again. It's okay, Ed. We all know that sometimes boys are a little slow to the get up. It's okay. Then, how our book ends is Clementine and Ed are working in the bookstore a couple weeks later, and Clementine just looks at him and just goes, hey, will you marry me? And he looks at her and just goes, all right. So, fast forward 3 months later, and they get married at their favorite restaurant. The end. I have to say, so far, this is my favorite book by Kylie Scott. I love the banter that she has with Clementine and Ed, and I love how she goes into the brains of her character, especially Clementine's. It's really, really funny because since Clementine had damage to the front of her head, Clementine doesn't really have a filter, and Kylie Scott emphasizes that in her internal dialogue for Clementine, which is great. It's so funny. There were so many times in the book that I was just cracking up at some of the things that Clementine was thinking. It was great. And Ed, our leading man, he is everything you are looking for in a romance novel leading man. He's gorgeous. He is trustworthy. And he is most definitely faithful, which I love. So I have to say, it is time for my favorite part, where we review the book on a scale of 1 to passion fix worthy. Let's review, shall we? What is the first thing we need for a fantastic romance novel? 1, a swoon-worthy couple. 2, angst, romance, drama, suspense. And 3, a happy ending worthy of a true romance novel. And I have to say, we got all those things in repeat. So of course I'm gonna give it a 10. It is totally Passion Flix movie worthy. So Lauren, over at Passion Flix, pick up repeat. It's fantastic. Trust me, you won't be able to put it down. I reread it yesterday in a day because I just loved it so much. Check it out. All right, my friends, this has been long enough. Thank you so much for turning into episode 1 of Repeat. Tune in Thursday, where I review another one of my favorite new authors. Actually, it's 2 authors by Keelan and Penelope Ward's book. You ready for it? Stuck Up Suit. Look for it Thursday at 8 p.m. I can't wait to hear from you guys. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. And please follow me on Instagram, and I will be putting up a link to my YouTube channel in the next day or 2. Thank you so much. I love you all, and continue to read, book nerds.